Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Buccola, and I'm so honored and excited to invite you to join me for a class on 5 things I've learned about freedom from Frederick Douglass. I've been reading Frederick Douglass for a couple of decades now. Back when I was in graduate school, I became really interested in Douglass as a political thinker. He's somebody who had this amazing life. I was born into slavery, escaped from slavery, and spent 6 decades of his life agitating on behalf of the rights of minorities, the rights of women, the rights of immigrants. And I became really interested in how Douglass thought about politics. And so I spent the last 20 years on and off writing about Douglass. I wrote a book called The Political Thought of Frederick Douglass. And what I want to do in this class is really think about Douglass in relation to this concept of freedom. This is all important political concept, a concept that's always central to American political debates. And I find that Douglass is one of our most insightful thinkers on this idea. Douglass is somebody who really developed as a political thinker in the shadow of the absence of freedom. Douglass was denied freedom for that first part of his life, and he got to experience what that was like and saw the impact that had on the human beings around him. So Douglass fights to liberate himself, and he ends up devoting his life to then trying to liberate others. And so what I want to do in this class is think about what Douglass can teach us about freedom through his experiences and through his ideas. And some of the things that we'll talk about might be a little bit surprising. Douglass is this kind of very, very famous, self-made man is one of the terms that's often associated with Douglass. And that's certainly true. He's somebody who was, who really sort of made and remade himself so many times in his life. But he also was really attentive to the ways in which his own self-making, his own freedom depended on other people, and really made central to his political philosophy the idea that in order for all of us to be free, we have to look out for one another. So we're going to talk about that relationship between self-making and our social responsibility to other people. We're also going to talk about Douglass as somebody who was especially concerned about fairness. He thought that freedom was a really important idea and that people had a lot of obligations to sort of pull themselves up and rely on themselves and so on. But he always thought that in order for human beings to really be free, they had to be operating in a context that was fair, that wasn't rigged in favor of one group over another. And so we're going to talk about the relationship between freedom and fairness. And I also want to draw your attention to the ways in which Douglass is somebody who was concerned about freedom in so many realms of our political lives. He said late in life, "I worry I'll only be remembered as the slave who became an abolitionist." And that's obviously central to Douglass's biography. But he really, I think what he meant when he said that was he devoted himself not just to the abolition of slavery and to the securing of rights for African Americans, but he was also one of the leading women's rights advocates of the 19th century. He was a leading advocate of the rights of women, religious minorities. And so one of the things I really find fascinating and important about Douglass is the ways in which he takes what he says, one idea, this idea of human freedom is capable of manifold applications. It contains within it an encyclopedia of arguments. So we're going to get into all that stuff in this class. So not only are you going to learn a lot about Frederick Douglass and a lot about freedom, but I also want to say that one of the things that will be important for us to think about are the things that Douglass can teach us as thinkers, as speakers, as writers. One of the things I love about Douglass are the ways in which he mixes autobiography with political philosophy, right? He draws on his experiences as an individual to draw these big lessons about how we ought to live as individuals and how we ought to live together. So that's another big thing we'll learn in this class. October 19th, please join me for 5 things I've learned about freedom from Frederick Douglass. Thanks so much.